And I keep making my 500,000. Now I step out. He runs the team meetings. He's established the leadership over that period of time. He was bumped up and got paid more and more. That's the path to growth. That's been the most successful established way to replace yourself in the real estate business. The idea of how to actually compensate your leader, your sales manager, your general manager, your team leader, and give them a path of growth into ownership. Okay, and again, this can work with any leadership position, so it really applies to everybody. But I think the idea is really important conceptually, because they too can start making more and more money. But understand, the more agents that they're managing, at some point they're going to grow. And in theory, they're going to be stepping out of production themselves. They'll stop taking buyers and start distributing those leads to buyers agents, or maybe call them showing assistants just for those deals for a while. And then they're just going to focus on listings. So, you just get to a position where you're just focusing on listings. You're really just going to work, 9 to 5. You're going to stop working buyers, which means you don't need to work nights. You don't need to work weekends. Once you learn to set listings in between the week. I know a lot of you are like, what do you mean? People need to do listing appointments at nights and weekends. No, they don't. You're wrong. Just like your accountant won't meet with you on nights and weekends, and your doctor won't meet with you on nights and weekends, and your dentist won't meet with you on nights and weekends. Once you learn to be a freaking professional, you require your clients to come home or take time off work. It's amazing agents don't get that memo when they first get their license. So they want to be treated like a professional, but they just don't act like one. So all the top agents know this. That's why they don't take listings when people get home from work. They just don't. Just like those people, they have you treat, and they learn all the wonderful scripts and dialogues to demand that type of activity. And if you don't know that, that's a different video. But that's the idea, is we make them come home. So now all of a sudden they're working a 9 to 5 job. But even then, it's hard to take all those listings and manage the team if that agent count's getting bigger and bigger, and there's problems, and you're trying to recruit, and agents are trying to leave, and agents are struggling, and there's fires put out, and you have transactions to close. So they themselves will want to start stepping out of active production. And then they're going to want to get more of that passive income or less active income from the team's production. And at some point, they're even going to ask for ownership. They're going to say, man, you're off cruising the world or just being a mom and having fun. How do I get where you get? And we got lots of examples of that in the clients we coach at ICC. Tons of people have stepped out of production, and people on the path to ownership, and lots of people who have ownership, lots of people that are partners. And then we've got the partners who have actually replaced themselves to go thirds. And then they've got somebody on an ownership path again. So you might allow someone to come take, roughly 50% of the ownership. They may do it. And then they themselves go through the same process with somebody else as a sales manager and a leader. And then all of a sudden they earn in, and all of a sudden we whittle it down to a third. So now you got 33 1/3% owners. That happens too. Actually, I have 2 people doing that right now with thirds. And it works great. You still keep making the same amount of money as the leader as you did when you start. In fact, it's really the only way to have a team running for like 20 years, because everybody needs that path for growth. People aren't just going to be happy. Good leaders are just not going to be happy with the ceiling and a lid on them. You're going to have to keep providing that path for growth and putting it out in front of them. Or you're going to get someone who hits a ceiling, and a good leader who hits a ceiling is going to say, hey, I can't sell anymore because I'm out of time. I can't get ownership. I can't earn any more active income because I'm out of time. So I'm out. I'm going to run my own team, something I can own and replace myself and do what you do on that trip. I want some ownership. And that gets a little tricky, right? So that's why, and I'll give you an idea what that looks like, all right? Let's say I run a team, and I get to a place where I'm at a net profit of $500,000. Okay, after all my expenses, I pay all my agents through cost of sales. We've gone over all this, and if we haven't gone all over this, then you take my agent financials course and you can go over and learn how to do this. So we paid all our agents out through cost of sales. We've paid all our operating expenses to our admin staff, our marketing, and everything else we got to pay on a monthly basis. And after that, we've got net profit. Profit margin usually going to be, depending how big you are, small teams, 40%, big teams, 30%, real big teams, organizations, real big brokerages, starts 20% lower even. You got 500 agents, you're not going to be holding 20%. I promise you that. You're going to be down 10%, 8%, things like that. But lots of income. Your income's going to go up. That's the neat thing. And that's the idea. Now, with that being said, let's say I make 500,000. That's my net income, regardless of what profit margin I have. I make 500,000. And my goal is to keep making $500,000 a year until I die. Now, as we've talked about, I could sell my business in theory, if you could find anyone that would buy my team, which is pretty tough, as we've talked about. I could sell it in theory for 3 years of those net profits for 1.5 million right now. Super duper. I really doubt you're going to be able to do it. You don't see that very often, but let's even say I could. Well, I don't want that. That's not enough for me. 1.5 million isn't enough for me to hang it up for the rest until I die. So I'd rather have $500,000, not for me. I got to go to like all these different events and places and things, right? I got to live a life, got to pay for my kids, all that, right? So I'd rather make $500,000 a year all the way until I die, or at least stretch it out as long as I can. That's a lot more than 1.5 million, assuming I'm going to live for more than 3 years. How do I do that? Well, the plan I said, cutting it in half and cutting it in thirds, will do that. Because then we're going to set some benchmarks out for that leader, that sales manager that we've hired, to get to earn into some ownership, right? So for example, we can set those benchmarks based on increased gross commission income, increased team dollar, company dollar, which is the dollar that we receive as a team after paying out the agents. It can be based on that. It can be based on net profits. That would actually be more accurate. But the problem with net profits is it's very tough because a lot of us are running, most agents are running very convoluted profit and losses. So you have to get really agreed upon on all the personal expenses that you're putting under your team, like your car and, all your different expenses that we've talked about that you back out. Like you probably have your family's health insurance on there. You're going to have like your divorce attorney, probably put him under a professional expense. You probably got your kids' cell phones in there. You know what I mean? All your like kids' computers you probably put under there. All of those things, which I get. And that stuff your accountant's probably telling you to do secretly and all that kind of stuff. And you should be able to do that. Far be it for me to say you shouldn't. But the point of the matter is that's not fair if we're going to base someone's performance on net profits, because every year your accountant's going to be looking for ways to keep your profit down so you don't pay a lot. And so when that happens, if we base ownership or at least increase performance benchmarks, profit sharing, what have you, on net profits, it gets a little tricky, right? Which is why in my agent financials course, and I'm sure we've discussed before, we got to go through and back out all your personal expenses. Remember I put all these asterisks next to all down this right-hand side next to all the personal expenses. And and then we come over here and deduct them from your operating expenses and net income to increase the amount of your net income. You're also probably going to pay yourself a salary. That's another one. You're going to pay yourself a salary on your P&L as well too. Well, that's your net income, man. I get that you're paying yourself a salary because you're incorporated and you're allowed to treat yourself as an expense. And that's great to reduce your tax liability, to increase your net income. However, if you're doing that stuff, that's not fair to the sales manager. You're saying, man, you're not making me any money. Here you are paying yourself a big salary. So we got to get agreed upon on what personal expenses are going to get backed out, and you may not want to open your books that much. I have a lot of agents that do, a lot of leaders that do, and owners that do, and that's fine. It depends what you got in there. If you're running a prostitution ring out of it too, I probably wouldn't open those books up. Just kidding, but you get the idea. The whole point, I doubt the mafia does it, but I wouldn't know. So the point of the matter is, they frighten me. So the point is, that point, that's the one downfall to opening up. But if it were net income, it'd be wonderful, because then as they grow your net, your profit, for sure they're not getting crazy with expenses. If you compensate them just on gross commission income, or even team dollar, they could grow that up and double it or triple it, but your income may not double or triple them. Why? They may be spending tons of money on marketing. They might have just spent like $50,000 a month on Zillow leads. So your net income's gone to hell, but the company dollar, the team dollar has gone through the roof. So that's why basing it off net income is much more powerful. But you also have to open the books. At the same time, you're just paying them. This is a method of compensation. They're not an owner yet, not yet. So if they're blowing up your books, in theory, you can stop them or fire them. So most of my teams, because they don't want to get that complex with the books, don't do it that way. They actually show them the books from time to time so they see it, but because they are wanting to head towards ownership and they want to see what ownership looks like. So you do need to pull the curtain back from time to time and show them the P&L and show them how you adjust out a lot of those personal expenses, because they do want to be an owner. They want to enjoy in some of those benefits. They want to see how you do it. You yourself got to do it. So you got to track how you do this stuff. That's why we teach it to you. So most of my teams do base compensation based on company dollar, team dollar increases, right? And there should be a direct correlation between an increase in company team dollar and your profitability if we hold your profit or your expenses in line with my agent financials course. If we hold those operating expenses in 30% of GCI, we should be all right. If we hold your cost of sales according to our sliding scale and our team budget model, we should be all right. And that's where we're going to meet with them to make sure that they do that on a regular basis, because they're our leader and we hold them accountable, right? So most of the time we go by team or company dollar increase. And then let's say they take team or company dollar up another 25%. There should be a reasonable correlation with that, where now our net profit goes up maybe 60%. It just depends on your team and how it runs. And then they might increase company dollar, team dollar up another 25%. And that might bring your net profit increase up to 85%. And then they might increase team company dollar up to 100% increase, which means they double it. And that might double your net profit to $1 million. And that's when, along those baby steps, we increase their share of the profit. And we just call it profit partnering or profit sharing, that we start paying them 20% of what would be an owner distribution if they would be an owner. You know, maybe we pay them 10%, maybe we pay them 20% with each baby step until they double your net profit. And that's when they vest as an owner, if they want the option to vest. But they got to want the option. I mean, you're an owner, which means you're on the hook for all the liabilities now too. Before, you were just getting compensated with those increases in profit shares. So you didn't worry if things cost money or the market died or something happened, someone increased the rent or all those terrible things. You were just getting paid a percent of the partner. You had the best of both worlds. If you really want to vest and have ownership shares in the corporation, you also have to go on the hook for the liabilities. Or you can just stay on and get, I would say 49%. I mean, I wouldn't give 50%, but get real close to it, 49.5% of the profits without being a vested owner, which means they could be fired at any given time because they don't have an ownership share. You got to make sure you want to be in business with this person by this time too, because a divorce is very sloppy when you both have shares of ownership in the business. But they also have the option too to marry you formally or continue to get paid a percentage of the profits. I can tell you I've opted into some of those ownerships. I've opted out of some of those ownerships. I've had people opt in and opt out with me. I've had many of our clients have people opt in and out. It's very natural and it's very transparent. You could be watching this as a leader. You could be having your sales manager watch this. I hope you're watching it together. Kumbaya, because this really is just open and transparent to everyone. Should be. There should be nothing hidden about this. Does that make sense? So again, the stair steps, we have to use a P&L and establish, and I really would do that with a coach or a mentor if it's your first time, establish what those benchmarks are for increasing production and try to correlate them with the increase in your net profitability. And then establish, now I hire them on at 50%. I don't care because I just keep making my $500,000, right? Because they doubled it. Now I'm going to pay them roughly half of it. and I keep making my 500,000. Now I step out. He runs the team meetings. He's established the leadership over that period of time. He was bumped up and got paid more and more. And there we go. And pretty soon he's going to get burned out like you did. Everybody does. So he's got to have a path to growth, so he can put his radar up for a sales manager. He can have the sales manager prove themselves. Once the sales manager proves themselves, guess what? Then they can start earning in. Your profit that, went from 500,000 to $1 million, and then you gave half. Now we just got to get to 1.5. And now we have enough to pay him. You make your 500,000, your replacement still makes their 500,000, and the third guy's working to making their 500,000. And it works. We've got quite a few people on the path of that third. There's examples of that all over the place. That's the path to growth. That's been the most successful established way to replace yourself in the real estate business, without a doubt. And it does work, and it's fully transparent, and you don't have to hide any of it. That's the key. If you hide it, man, people start losing trust when they get too busy, when they get burned out, when sales drop, when there isn't that forward momentum. You actually keep painting the picture of the finish line to motivate them through tough times when sales volume drops, during seasonality impacts of the fall, when interest rates go up. That's when you repaint that picture in their mind to motivate them of what that finish line looks like. You put that out in front and you show them. And that's good leadership. It motivates. And it doesn't motivate from a lot of silver tongue fire you up speech. It's by painting an honest and true picture of what their career path looks like. And being extremely transparent and treating someone like a future partner. And that's the idea. And that's how you create a path to real estate team ownership, brokerage ownership, leadership ownership, and also replace yourself in this business. And help other people, man. And help other people. So I hope that helps.